Hey there, what's going on, everybody? And if you've read the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, then you probably already know he's got a new book called Never Finished. And I just got to say, what I absolutely love about this book is that he really starts to help a lot of different people to share wisdom and ideas that aren't just for the elite ultra endurance athlete or the person who wants to become a special forces trained, ultra endurance badass kick-ass military combat veteran, like in the book Can't Hurt Me, where I would say that that's probably one of the key audiences. I mean, yes, it helps a lot of people and it probably motivated a lot of people, but you can tell the transformation in the writing style from Can't Hurt Me, which if you read it, it's worth reading before this, to David Goggins in Never Finished, because what you can tell is that in Never Finished, David Goggins has already, by this book, has already helped millions and millions and millions and millions of people. He's probably improved all of America's health by at least like 2%. And what I mean by that, let's say a population of 400 million people, he's got like something like 8 million plus followers, plus millions of readers and all of that. And if he can get all of those people to just improve by a little bit, I mean, there's some 1% improvement right there. That's very hard to beat. I mean, I probably don't have the exact numbers right, 2%, 1%, whatever, but you get the idea. So if anyone's helping America improve their fitness, their discipline, their tenacity, I would say that it's probably David Goggins right now from his two books, Can't Hurt Me and Never Finished. But what's done very well in Never Finished, that's so amazing, that's absolutely amazing in terms of the writing style, is that you can see the transformation that he's writing for a wider group of people. Now he does that a little bit in Can't Hurt Me, and it's not, you got to take what you want from the stories, so it's not necessarily just for like a military combat veteran, but there are a lot of ideas in it that might not appeal to the average person. And even in Never Finished, like the average person, this book might be a little too intense for the average person, but you can tell that there's an amazing effort that's being done by David Goggins, because all the people that he's probably helped, all the people that have been emailing him, all the people that have messaged him on social media asking for advice in this or that. I mean, he starts to, in Never Finished, talk about helping people, how to help people in med school, law school, getting people to like finish writing their books. So of course, like the ultra endurance athlete thing is still there, and you could get a lot from that element of it. But this concept of the transformation of David Goggins knowing that who he's helping lots of people, even him bringing his own mother onto a podcast. If you get the Audible version, you can listen to the podcast audio and him interviewing his own mother, and she goes over the story about their trauma together as they were growing up. But through that story, you really get a sense that it's not just about becoming a badass. It's not just becoming a Navy SEAL. It's not just trying to take everybody's souls, but really David Goggins looking to help lots and lots and lots of different people, and not just the ultra endurance person, the badass kick-ass athlete. I mean, obviously you could tell in his books he wants a lot of people to have warrior, Spartan-like, just killer mentalities, like killer in a good way, like constantly pushing yourself harder, but building that mentality, but also helping many people that are not just trying to become ultra athletes, but to get people to push themselves to not live lives of just average mediocrity. I mean, that's how powerful this book is. And with that said, there's an amazing idea that I've taken away from this book, and I'm about like halfway through, is this idea of you don't have to have a traumatic life to live a hard life. And what I mean by that, and what I've really taken from this book is, David Goggins, he had a lot of trauma growing up, and there's probably a lot of people around the world that can probably relate to that, and it has really made them tough. Oprah Winfrey, on a different level, grew up with a rat-infested home and things like that. And there's a lot of people who have grown up in maybe abusive homes, or homes that just weren't, that were very much less than ideal, and grew up to be tougher, to have more tenacity, to have more discipline, and all of things like that. Like, you got everything from like traumatic to hard, tough lives, like, and then you just have simply disciplined lives, like where you had to grew up on a farm and you had to work. So, with that said, growing up a little bit harder than typical society, and there's this great research study that I was just reading this morning that made me want to do this video. The research study was about mice. And I don't like comparing humans or whatever to animals, but just hear out the story, right? It was this guy, I think it's John B. I might have the last name wrong, Calhoun or something, built a utopia for mice. He built like this. They were gonna have all the food and water they could want. The only thing was they were like, and they had plenty of space, but they weren't given infinite space. So, and what they found was after a few generations of mice, the mice would become lazy. They would do nothing but groom. They would stop fighting and not having to fight for things can be good, but then you lose the motivation and the drive to become greater. Now, again, these are mice. I'm not saying they have a desire to become greater, but you can tell the difference between a pampered animal and an animal that has to go and push themselves to achieve and attain what they want. And this is the same in humans too. You can tell the difference between someone who has mostly gotten everything that they could possibly want in life simply because it's given to them, and those who are just active, ambitious, constantly working, had to grow up and worked in the ditches and all of that, and had to work for every single meal or whatever. So with that said, you can really tell the differences, not just in the mice, right? But you can tell this in people. And like the research really showed that, when people have everything, or it showed when mice have everything that they could possibly need, things start to change in the mice personalities over time. And I don't want to use the term they get softer because I'm about to, relate this to humans, but they became, more about grooming. They didn't really care as much. They didn't, they just became not as functioning mice. And there are some parallels that experts, just people online, we call them experts, internet experts, if you can believe them or not, whatever. They talk about this idea that a lot of us as people are becoming softer. And, we are living in a society where things are easier. Running water whenever we need, refrigerators, salt to preserve our food. I mean, living in America, you've got food and water at any time of the day. Even if you're homeless, you can find a homeless shelter. You can go to a homeless shelter to get free food. There's just an absolute abundance in America that many other countries might not have. So you could argue, if you're trying to look at America in an unbiased way, that there is some softness in America. Now, I'm not saying like rudeness or meanness or cruelty or anything like that is what we should have. I'm just saying like softness in a way that, other nations who are not as well pampered might frown upon. With that said, there's some great lessons here in Never Finished, and this idea that you don't necessarily need a traumatic life to have a harder life. And where I think that's interesting is because no matter what, I mean, if you're a typical American, you've got food on your plate many times a day. If you've got water whenever you need, you've got showers, you've got health care. Even if you don't have insurance, I mean, you might go bankrupt, but the hospitals have to help you. So, with that said, there is a lot that's given to us in society, and this is the same for many first world countries too. It's not just America, but I'm American. I live in America. David Goggins is American. He writes, and he's got a lot of American followers. So, just getting this concept here. With that said, there does seem to be a push for Americans to toughen up. And how do you do that when life has been easy or is easy? And there's a lot of like interested in like Stoic philosophy and all that, and there's people who are ascetic, and what I mean by that, ASCETIC, I think, like where they believe that like punishment and pain is the way to live or whatever. With that said, how do you become toughened if you've had an easy life? Do you need to punish yourself? Do you need to you know go broke? Do you need to pretend like you're broke? Do you need to pretend like your life has been harder than it really is? And David Goggins gives some great answers, because you can tell he's helped so many more people, and that you can potentially help yourself through the power of discipline. I mean, that's it. If you've had an easy life and you want to harden up a little bit, or the times that you're having make you need to harden up. For example, you've been laid off from a job, maybe your parents have passed away, your moral support, your financial support has been taken away, you've been put in a really tough situation, whatever those things are, and you've had things easy up until this point. There's some great lessons from Never Finished in this idea of discipline, because what you hear from Can't Hurt Me, and I'm just comparing the two books. Everyone has their own opinion, so this is just my personal sharing of my thoughts about it. But Can't Hurt Me, super badass, right? Like, it's more like, hey, get it, take their souls, dominate, and just keep going, right? But you can tell that in Never Finished, there's a little bit more to be learned from somebody who's helped millions and millions of people. There's a little bit more to be gained from, not in like a soft kind of way, like with more empathy or whatever. Maybe he has more empathy now, but I mean like just more relatability across the board. Like, if you haven't had the challenges of like a traumatic childhood to really toughen you up, or you didn't grow up in less than ideal conditions as a kid, so you never really faced the challenges of having a tough childhood, and having to fight for your food, or like everything you had to do, you had to become successful in order to get yourself out of a situation. You don't necessarily have to experience those things in order to live a hardened life. And I don't mean hardened life like becoming unsympathetic, unempathetic, and not giving a care about anybody else or anything, but I mean like a hardened life to where you can push yourself beyond your personal limits, where you can live a more fulfilled life, and ultimately do greater, bigger things. And David Goggins, I just finished a chapter where he was talking about, well, what if there's no purpose? What if none of this actually matters or whatever? I mean, there's some more that he goes into about that, but just this idea of dominating what you're doing now, really, really taking time to harden up. I mean, maybe the hardening up is that you're doing something that might be considered soft even harder, right? If you're making makeup tutorials, again, like, this is just an example. If you're making makeup tutorials and you want to become a known makeup artist, do more of it. Work those extra hours, right? Like, this is just some ideas here. Now, I don't know if he would approve of me comparing, using his lessons from Never Finished to motivate or help somebody who's trying to do makeup tutorials or whatever. But anyway, these are just some thoughts, right? Like, at the opposite ends of the spectrum of what people are doing, from like some of the toughest situations in life and growing up, and some people never get out of it. Some people never overcome their traumas, their mental addictions, the problematic mental addictions, or whatever, physical, I don't know. So, some people never overcome those things, but maybe a little bit of toughening up around those situations can help. Now, obviously, always talk to, your personal, psychologist, therapist, talk to a certified professional if you're going through a very tough situation. But with that said, this is a very powerful book. And where I think it's very powerful, even more powerful, is there's a lot of self-help out there today. And a lot of it is ultimately about, living with your heart, living with, the law of attraction is a big idea, letting, your soul and your spirit be your guide. And yes, I believe there's some power in all of those things. And, I do see some tie-ins with what David Goggins does in his books with some ideas in personal growth. But this is a guy who has amazing stories to tell that give you great examples of how you can overcome those. I mean, just, the Audible book is amazing because you constantly hear him saying, well, I went through this and I was in my head going through this and I was suffering through this situation. And the fact that he uses the word I mean, in your head, you're like, whoa, I'm going through that right now, right? You almost get that experience on a different level. And obviously, you're not truly experiencing the pain and the whatever he's going through, but just to have that in your head can potentially help motivate you, not just for fitness, but to help you overcome those challenges that you currently have, whatever they are, or to help you take on the next big challenge, or to help you through whatever. So this is an amazing book. If you've read Can't Hurt Me, absolutely read that. But you don't even have to finish reading that before you read this. I mean, it's worth reading both because he has some amazing stories. But I will also say that the stories in the two books are very different. You find in some of these sequel books that a lot of the ideas are the same, or they might reuse the same stories with like the new added stories. But David Goggins has done a great job of adding some new ideas, sharing some new principles, giving actionable tips, and really giving a great book that can help a lot of people harden up. I don't mean like hardening yourself up to the world. I don't mean like, not being a human being, not like, not caring about human, or I don't know if the double negatives there, but it's like, still caring about humanity, but like, you know, being able to go after what you want, having the courage to do that, realizing that, I mean, literally right here, unshackling the mind and winning the war within. Because at the end of the day, he's got so many examples of winning the war within and how your mind can really push you further in so many ways, whether it be studying, whether it be at your job, whether it be in school, whether it be in fitness, exercise, your entrepreneurial endeavors, your job, all of these spiritually, all of these different areas in life, wherever you want to improve. I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned here. And like, a lot of people talk about the science of like what goes on in your head and how to like conquer your mind and all these things, but David Goggins really has some great stories that give you a good example of like specifically how to tackle those situations. And maybe it might not be relatable to everybody, but at the end of the day, as far as great books today go, this is a winner. So check that out. Never Finish. You probably will also want to read Can't Hurt Me. But thank you for watching and have a great day.